in terms of your goals and what you reach, knowing that you will move the goalpost in advance is something that is obvious, but also seems strange at the time of chasing a goal that we so desperately want are focused on. Not even not necessarily desperately want, but the level of focus with which we pursue this goal is vital until we achieve it. And there's a few options we have. We can either feel like we expected this to be the holy grail and are now wondering why. Two is we enjoyed the process and now we look for the next goalpost. Or three, which is this was a big goal, but now because I achieved it, I'm going to take a short break for me to reset my uh, physiological effects of goal pursuit. And obviously these vary based on what goal you're working towards. But a lot of the time, if you have a large goal, it's hard to see the who you will be once you reach the goal. In terms of now that that's your new start line, you don't know what your next goal will be for the person who is at a new starting line, because you're focused on the you right now from here to your goalpost, and your goalpost will become a starting line, and it's not always clear what your next goal will be. But but a lot of people will who set very large goals for themselves, but not a goal in the sense of the infinite game, but they expect that goal to be the complete finish line, have no idea what to do after. This is very possible. And this can happen for very large goals. And I'll give you some examples. A lot of the time, the bronze medalist in the Olympics feels like winning a bronze medal is actually more positive energy for them in some cases than the silver medals and the gold medals. And the idea is basically this. The gold medalist now doesn't know what to do next. They got their goal. The silver medalist, now obviously this isn't a study. I'm mostly making shit up, but I think you can imagine the analogy. So the gold medalist now does finally reach their major goal. They're number one. They don't know what to do now. The silver medalist felt they were so close. They're frustrated by the fact that they didn't win. And the bronze medalist, he did well. He's happy. He got a good result, but he wasn't like this close to getting gold. And he also has something to work towards. So he's, it's like he got the reward of showing him that he's made progress while still seeing what his next goals are going to be. Which is, kind of funny. Other examples, for example, when I listen to Stephen Bartlett, and he mentions this frequently. So he always worked, for a long time, he worked with the idea that his main goal was to be rich. Like, that was his business target. That's what he thought it was. But then looking back, that wasn't actually what made the journey worthwhile. It was working for a mission that was meaningful with people that he liked. Right? It's like he loves the mission and he loves the people he works with. Obviously, that's what makes it better, even when they were poor. And then eventually, when he was offered like $300 million for his company, that was what gave him an existential crisis, because he was like, I can buy this, I can buy that, and then I'll be rich. This is what I've always worked for. And then he looked at it and I was like, and now what? Because before, even when he was poor, he was surrounded by people. He was focused on a mission. And he also knew exactly what he wanted to do next. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that his current position is worse than his previous position. It was just that he had to rediscover what his next goals. And of course, it's funny because what made it worthwhile was naturally the mission and the people. Because when he looks back on the things he actually did, if you offered him like 10 times the money he did those things for in the past, he would definitely not do them today, just because the actions were only justified by the meaning given from sources outside of money. For example, when it comes to things like, being on a plane like 30 hours a week, like just constantly going there everywhere, having to be available at like maybe sometimes 2 a.m. to respond to messages from different time zone and just things like this. And he would just never do that just for the money. It was because of of the mission that he was so focused on. So the focus is what like narrows your field of view and also makes you forget about the things you're doing in that process. So in this case, it's not about, so again, this is very easy to rephrase back into, it's not about your external world, it's about how you perceive the external world. And the external world actually can include your actions, how much money you're being paid for it, and like what it is that you're doing, why it, the actual measurable, observable events and objective events. Whereas the internal world is simply how you perceive all of these events and how these events make you feel, what thoughts you have about the events. And that's what determines whether or not you're actually happy. And my note here in terms of moving the goalpost, and so that everyone understands that you're always going to move the goalpost. If you were to play a video game and your current goal is to beat this boss, when you beat the boss, you don't go, yes, that has fulfilled all my missions forever. Well, I mean, maybe if you beat like the final boss and then you just quit the game, but you're not gonna just sit there and go, yeah, okay, this was exactly where I wanted to be. I'm just gonna sit here and kill this boss the exact same way over and over. If you do, it's because your new goal is to kill him faster, maybe, or like speedrun, maybe kill him hitless. But it's a new goal essentially. So, yeah, it's like if you have a goal in life, you're going to set up a new goal once you reach whatever it is you have now. And the other thing I want to mention is that a lot of the time people focus on, so this is like one of the most common things you'll hear rich people say, and that is, to make money or to achieve anything really, it's not about having an asset, or having a job or having a business. It's about increasing your leverage, which it usually is in the form of skill sets. Actually, I forgot where I was going with this. Why was I saying this? Fuck. Okay, my brain has completely went MIA. I'm gonna completely ignore that topic. You can pretend I didn't say anything. Okay, next. Okay, so this is back to happiness. Analyze yourself. What would make you happy, genuinely and permanently? Not what would make you feel good. Is it something that you have? And would you be simply unable to be happy without it? Okay, so this is something I wrote. Basically, it's saying, look at the thing that you're chasing after now. If it was given to you now, would you simply be happy? Okay. Does that also mean you cannot be happy unless you have it? So the answer to both of these are generally no for every single person, which means, not saying to give up on your goals, it means you just have to not expect your goals to be the thing that gives you happiness. So don't outsource your happiness to this goal that you probably won't have exactly in the image you have in your head right now. It will change. The way you will embody this life that you picture will change. It will be completely different by the time you approach. As you get closer, everything will change. So you just have to understand that not to try to outsource your happiness to this pretend future. And I guess the most appropriate example I can use for this is the traditional life path that you get sold, which is, it's like go to school, go to university, get a job, pay off your student debt, improve your income over time, maybe invest, and then retire with your money, and then you can chill for the for the rest of your life or something. I guess it's like you're outsourcing your happiness for the time when you have enough money, have your own house, and then you can write off all of these problems that you stacked on top in the way there. Now, obviously, I don't think anybody actually expects the happiness to be at 60. But even if they say like, oh, I need to get an A while you're in school, and then it's I need to make it into this university, and then it's I need to get this grade in my university, and then it's like I need to get this, and then it's I need to get this internship, I need to get this job, I need to get this promotion, I need to get this student debt paid off, I need to be able to afford this house, I need to be able to pay off my mortgage, and it's just the same thing. It's like an idle game. It's the exact same situation. There's just an extra digit at the end of all of the numbers. Nothing changed. So just understand that a lot of these goals that you're trying and problems you're trying to solve isn't going to be checked off and now you're happy. That's what you're working towards right now, and your happiness doesn't have to revolve around the idea that you're going to get your happiness when you reach that goal. It's basically all I'm really saying. Okay. Sometimes when you have things that you're maybe criticizing yourself for not doing, and you go, I'm too lazy to do that, or this or that, it's like because and because of this or because of that, I don't feel like doing it or whatever. Maybe it's like I don't feel like I don't feel like getting a haircut today. It's like then, or I don't feel like washing the sink today. I don't feel like just random stuff. And also sometimes when you do things, you just kind of have to balance the two. It's like, is this actually worth my time, or like am I actually too lazy to do it, or is it just I just don't I just don't feel like this is worth the time, because yeah, sure, the sink could be cleaner, but maybe I don't have to clean it as frequently as I would be beating myself up to have it clean. For example, maybe I feel bad if I don't clean it every 2 weeks, and then maybe it's fine to just do it 3 weeks instead. That's just an example. Obviously, I don't actually mean that, have your sinks be clean. But my point is that sometimes what it is that you're beating yourself up over being too lazy to do isn't actually worth beating yourself up over not doing. All of the examples I listed, you have to do eventually, but maybe it's not that big of a deal if it takes longer before you do it. For me, I just shave my head whenever my hair starts causing me discomfort. Like it starts to droop down and I feel it on my head, and it feels kind of annoying. So that's my example for my hair. But I wouldn't ever feel bad because if I feel bad over not cutting my hair, it's because my hair is being uncomfortable. That's it, right? It's not because I feel like I'm supposed to cut my hair every X amount of time or anything like that. So that's kind of what I mean. So I haven't actually taken a break from my exercises. If I were to skip a day of my exercises, I would tell myself not to beat myself up over it. The reason I'm afraid to skip is simply because I'm afraid that I will repeatedly skip. I fear that skipping once would make me try to self-justify skipping more times. That's the main reason I haven't skipped. But if I were to start skipping and do it maybe 5 times a week instead of 7 days a week, then I would still justify it as it's whatever. I don't have to beat myself up over it. I'm just afraid that I'll end up being lazy again. when you are at a crossroads of thought where you don't have truly sufficient evidence to believe one thing or the other, and maybe you're just not too sure what you want to think or what you want to believe, choose the one that has more EV, that will make you happier, that will make you feel less grumpy, less frustrated, less upset maybe with the world. Or maybe you can just choose the option to make this topic out of mind, or maybe just say, this thing has no impact on my life, I'm gonna just ignore it completely. And I'll give you an example, I guess. Let me think. Let me see. Let's say you believe that you should walk for 2 hours every day to be healthy. Okay. Now, if you walk for 1 hour a day and you don't want to walk 2 hours a day, then you should probably choose to believe instead that walking 1 hour a day is good enough to be healthy, and that the extra hour wouldn't actually have much EV in terms of time to health. That's the more optimal belief. And the reason is because if you believe that 2 hours is good and 1 hour doesn't do much, then obviously 1 hour obviously would do much. I'm just giving an example here to explain my point. Then now the act of believing that the 2 hour walk would be better and that 1 hour is insufficient while you're doing 1 hour every day because you don't want to spend that extra hour on walking still, then that actually makes it worse, because the negative emotion on yourself makes your health, like, actually reduces the effect of your 1 hour walk, for example. Like, that negative energy is negative EV, and it will actually think of it this way. If we're comparing 2 hour walk to 1 hour walk and the health benefits, let's say 2 hour walk is twice as beneficial to your health as the 1 hour walk, then I'll tell you that a 1 hour walk, believing that 1 hour walk is optimal, is twice as healthy for you as a 1 hour walk, believing that a 2 hour walk is optimal, right? It's like the belief in itself is also another form of healthy exercise you can do, similar to the walking. So the act of believing with positive energy, to add the positive energy in your life, is like going on the extra hour walk. If that makes sense, right? It's like, you see what I mean? I think it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Okay. Let me know if it makes sense. Okay. So, in the book, he said that after his son died, and he went home, and he cried, and he went to sleep, he saw his son, and then he woke up, and then he realized what he saw. And then he started to imagine to himself, and he would imagine these conversations with his son over I don't know how much, maybe it was every day for a few weeks or whatever, some ephemeral amount of time. He would talk to his son before he reached this end point that made him get up and start changing. But during these conversations, and starting from the dream, he heard a theme song in the back of his head, in the background, and he didn't know what the song was, so he researched it, and then he found it, and it was the theme song to Portal, which he didn't play. He didn't finish playing. He played it some, but he only heard it a little bit, and then he went back and finished it after finding out about this song. But now he's finished the game. So when he went to research the song and then listen to the game for Portal and the story, he compared GLaDOS to the little voice in your head. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil the description. If you want to find out more, you can listen to the song. And I mean, I would recommend just getting the book, but it was very it was quite the analogy. But basically, he compared GLaDOS to your brain. Your brain gives you advice on what you should do. It's not your ally. It's just an assistant. It doesn't necessarily have your best interests in mind in terms of happiness. It's designed for your survival, not your happiness. And in today's world, you don't need this survival mechanics as much as you need happiness mechanics. So you need to be able to separate yourself from its chatter, its pessimism, its self-berating, its negative frustration with how other people act. It's frustration with how the world works. It's frustration with what other people, the little habits other people have that bother you. It's jealousy that other people have what you don't. It's predictions over a bleak future that you may have, and all of these things that are just not for your benefit anymore, because if those things came to be, you would be fine. Whereas before, if those things came to be, you would probably be eaten by a tiger or something, or you would starve to death. That's not the case now. So basically, he compared GLaDOS to the little voice in your head. If you know the story of Portal. If you don't, read the book. I didn't know the story of Portal until I read the book. Okay. Okay, this is no longer from Solve for Happy. This is a note I took from while listening to someone else speak, which was basically he was talking with a trainer and he was saying he was doing a study. He was doing an experiment, and then he had a hypothesis and the data came back weird. And then someone came to him and was like, how's your experiment? And he was like, I'm just gonna run the experiment again, and then something seems weird. And then his friend was like, why? Did the experiment not go? Was there an issue with the experiment? And he explained his data and what happened. And then his friend was like, that sounds like you should adjust your hypothesis and not the experiment, because it just sounds like you had your hypothesis, you set up the experiment, and the data did not prove your hypothesis, so now you feel like you have to change the experiment. No, change your hypothesis. You're trying to change the data to match your hypothesis and not the other way around. And it's very easy to get up in this trap. It's even scientists who preach the scientific theory can make this mistake sometimes if they're not careful, because that's, I think, I almost want to say that's human nature. I can't say that for a fact because I don't know enough about psychology, but it does feel like that's the most natural way to say it until you catch yourself doing it. And you can really see this with people like in the radical form of this. You can see it in people like the flat earthers. You can see it in people who spout things that become self-contradictory, and they keep coming up with ad hoc explanations when they try to expound what once you ask questions about other aspects, and then they make up new explanations for your new questions without realizing at all the kind of contradictions. They have to think and stumble over every single answer, because it's not one model that answers everything. It's this question, I have this belief, so in order for my belief to be true, the answer for this question must be this. And then you ask a new question and you go, in order for my belief to be true, that means that the answer for this question must be this. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I were to believe that I was 60 pounds. Okay, obviously false. But let's say I believed it. And you go, okay, so I don't have a scale, but let's say I believed I was 60 pounds. And you go, oh, that must mean push-ups are very easy for you because you must have more muscles relative to your body mass than other people with the same amount of muscle as you. And I go, oh yeah, but push-ups are just as difficult for me. I can't actually do that many more push-ups than other people with the same amount of muscle mass because, my muscles aren't built for push-ups, or I it's like my body shape that makes push-ups more difficult. And then you go, okay, well, maybe when you walk, the floors creak less. And I would say, oh no, it's the floorboards here are wooden. They're just not as tight. They're not as the structural integrity of the house isn't as good. And then you go, okay, well, maybe when you use the chair, when you try to push it down, you have a lot of trouble pushing it down because you're so light. And I go, oh no, it's a lot. My chair is just really sensitive, so that it doesn't take as much weight for it to go down. It's like I just keep coming up with these explanations, the only possible explanation to justify my belief that I'm 60 pounds. Whereas if I were to just take all of these observations and go, okay, given what I observe, it's probably more logical to believe that I don't weigh 60 pounds, that I weigh more than that. And then everything makes sense. I don't need to come up with new explanations for each of these things. And a lot of people, they'll have this belief first, and then they'll answer questions based on their belief, rather than have their belief based on the answers to the questions. You see? And obviously I'm not 60 pounds. I weigh way more than 60 pounds. I use that as an example because it's obviously false, and you can get my point. Okay, so this is actually related to what I said, my example earlier. Don't stress over optimizing for health. The act of stress makes your health, whatever your practices for health are, less optimal. Don't be like, oh yeah, I eat less. I make sure to get these kind of veggies. I feel good when I eat, but like, should I eat this particular fruit? Should I cut out this particular thing? Should I measure my calories? Should I measure how much I get for like carbs, for all of this, all of that? It's like, listen, the act of stressing over the particulars is actually is more detrimental to your health than the benefit it would gain if you were to make these little optimizations. Just don't stress over it. And obviously this is the same for like other things. Like if you're doing something else and you're stressing over like this little shit, it's probably not effective use of your time. Now, obviously, if you're doing like a professional job and the little stuff has to be more precise, like if you're designing a car, do stress over the little details. But you get what I mean. In terms of your personal practices, it's like, what is the most optimal way for me to, like what is the optimal amount of water I should drink? Okay, now I measure the amount of water and chug it down every day painfully. Or what is the optimal, I don't know, amount of eggs I should eat, or what is the optimal volume I should listen to stuff, or what is the just stupid shit, right? It's like, how much time should I allocate for this? It's like the time for using the washroom. I should just it's like, just don't stress over shit like that. That doesn't really matter. But I mostly took this note in terms of health because like I was just listening to like these trainers talk about how people will come to them and ask like these very nuanced questions that are less productive than they are if they just did the basics and then felt good about having done the basics and moved on to the other aspects of their life. Is basically what they were saying, which makes sense. I completely agree. The stress is like such a net negative that it just doesn't make up for the potential benefits from tweaking a little bit. Now, obviously, if you find out more stuff, if you get good information, you ask them what you should do, you just pump out a list, do them, fine. But don't be like, I'm doing all of these things. What are the little things I can optimize? I mean, maybe if you have a trainer that does it for you as an Olympic athlete, or, you're a fighter or whatever, but most people aren't. You get the idea. Okay. That's gonna be it. I don't know how we made it to 29 minutes. I keep talking too much.